Law that would really have a big impact on human trafficking. On our priorities are the American people's priorities, starting with jobs and the economy. That's why we're focused on sending another good jobs bill to the president, and that's the Trade Promotion Authority. And we're hopeful that the Senate will move this today, and the president will sign it into law. I think it's a big win for the American people. Trade's good for American farmers, for manufacturers, and small businesses. It wasn't an easy lift. We've got a lot left to do to make sure that we're helping the American people address their priorities.
First, I want to send out our prayers to all the America stands with you today. And personally, when I watched the last few days, there's been no greater display of faith than the victims' families. Their willingness to forgive, the unity that has been created in Charleston. As I mentioned yesterday, we will recess on Friday so members can attend the funeral. I do want to look back quickly at the success of the last week, the passage in the House of Trade Promotion Authority over to the Senate, and as the Speaker talks about, we'd like to see that back here to finish the job. I'd also like to highlight the passage of the repeal of Obamacare's medical device tax. It was veto-proof. That was a voice of the people to be able to move forward and pass it on the floor. We've also been building momentum, as I've said many times. This is the earliest we've ever started the appropriation process. We will start the 7th of 12 bills with Interior. Unfortunately, I hear many times, and I read within the paper, that it's kind of become the summer of dysfunction on the other side of the aisle. Not only is there internal civil war, but now they talk about wanting to shut government down. And it's just not in the House. You hear from Schumer, who talks about it may even be with the administration together. Now, a few things I want to point out. Took over the House, we wanted to change the way the House worked. So we opened up the floor to the appropriation process. We did not have an appropriation process before. But we opened up the floor that a member doesn't have to go and get approval when they want to do an amendment on appropes. They just offer it. It doesn't even have to be pre-written. And I wanted to lay out a few things that have happened already in this Congress. We have considered 340 amendments on the floor and accepted 184. Of those considered, 198 were Republicans, 142 were Democrats. Of those accepted, 121 were Republicans and 63 were Democrats. With an hour of general debate on both sides, on each bill, and 10 minutes per amendment, we spent approximately 62 hours of floor time debating these bills and amendments. That's the voice across America of citizens being able to have that debate on the floor. But to hear Democrats want to take away the voice and the power of their members and their constituents across America, that's unacceptable and that's wrong. America deserves better.
I join my colleagues in praying for the families of those that were lost in Charleston in the tragic shooting, and we'll be joining Speaker Boehner and a large bipartisan coalition of members that will be going down to the services on Friday. I think when you saw the tribute that was paid on the House floor by the members of the South Carolina delegation led by Congressman Sanford, it was very touching and very fitting of a tribute. So we got the lights back on. Did that EPA rule kick back in? You know, when you look at what was talked about by Kevin and John and the work that was done last week, so important to pass trade legislation, strong vote of members in the House that recognize that we want America to be competitive again. We want our workers to be competitive. When you look at some of these foreign markets where we're shut out, and the ability to get trade negotiations moving forward so that American workers can compete on a level playing field. And we know when we compete, we'll win. And I applaud the Senate for moving forward on this. I look forward to seeing them pass that legislation to President Obama and getting it signed into law and getting those negotiations in place so that we can finally get the right kind of rules where it's America, not China, writing the rules and leading on trade. And of course, when you look at how important that is for our economy, we've been moving a lot of legislation through the House to get our economy back on track and to address specific problems in the economy. You're going to see with the Interior Appropriations Bill that we're taking up later this week, a lot of important amendments from members of our Western Caucus and other members who have had battles with the EPA and seen that these kind of regulations have caused to kill jobs in America and increase costs. And what you're going to see today on the vote of the Ratepayer Protection Act by Chairman Whitfield, a bill specifically targeted at this latest that would be yet even more devastation to hardworking taxpayers. If you look at the EPA's proposal, it's estimated it would cause families to see more than a 12% increase in their household electricity rates for some radical agenda that some unelected bureaucrats at the EPA want to move forward on. And so this legislation we're bringing forward pushes back on that and protects hardworking taxpayers who are tired of these regulations that are having a devastating impact on our economy and are leading to higher costs that they're paying on electricity. I think you're going to see a strong bipartisan vote on that as well, and then send that over to the Senate and get it to the President's desk.
Well, I want to join in just sending sympathies and prayers to those in South Carolina that have lost their loved ones. And it's a terrible tragedy, and I pray that they will be able to come together, and I too admire the faith that has been demonstrated. The next few days, the Supreme Court's going to be ruling on several court cases, including King versus Burwell, and the potential of nearly 7 million people across this country losing their Obamacare subsidy. These 7 million people are our moms and dads, our neighbors, our college students, and some of the country's most vulnerable. And we want to give them peace of mind. We are committed to protecting them from rising costs, lost coverage, and voices. And we're going to continue to advance real healthcare solutions that put patients, not Washington, D.C., not bureaucrats, first. And just last night, we voted and passed legislation to repeal an unelected board of bureaucrats that limits seniors' health care options. And through the 21st Century Cures Initiative, we're pioneering innovative ways to provide treatments and cures to diseases that will affect millions of Americans. Real health care reform begins when we are empowering people. That mom with breast cancer, that boy with Down syndrome, and that woman with ALS. Real healthcare reform starts by making patients the priority, not the federal government. And together, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Back in 2012, I questioned then Secretary Sebelius about the concerns with the very issue at hand in the upcoming decision on the president's health care law. We didn't see anything in the law at the time that would allow federal subsidies to flow through a federally facilitated marketplace. Unfortunately, despite their promises, the administration ignored our concerns, and 3 years later, thousands of Kansans and millions of Americans are at risk of losing their health care subsidies. Now, the Supreme Court rules that the president's health care law did not authorize federal subsidies for policy holders not participating in state exchanges. House Republicans are prepared with a plan to ensure families who've been relying on subsidies are held harmless. Our plan will protect families as we transition away from this broken health care system that puts patients in charge, not the government.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of speculation. People waited with bated breath about the Supreme Court decision. I can tell you that as a physician, what matters to the people that I've cared for is that they have options. And I think the one thing we can learn from the Affordable Care Act is that access to insurance doesn't equate to access to health care. And while some have been able to afford insurance through taxpayer subsidies, many can still not afford the high deductibles or out-of-pocket expenses associated with those plans, and so are foregoing needed medical care. So instead of penalizing that individual, that family, or that business for not buying a one-size-fits-all healthcare plan designed by Washington bureaucrats, we should be incentivizing them to pick a plan that works best for them, that meets their needs and has the coverages that they want. It's time to put patients and healthcare professionals back in charge of the healthcare system.
Mr. Speaker, across the way yesterday, Leader McConnell said that he enjoyed working with the President on finishing trade. He said this was a big accomplishment for the Obama administration. How would you characterize working with the administration to finish this trade package?
No, I think the relationship between the President, myself, and very good. Been a lot of coordination to get this across the finish line, and I'm proud of the work that we've done.
Mr. Speaker, it looks like the Ex-Im Bank will be expiring a few days from now, at least temporarily. Is that an outcome that you're okay with, and do you expect to see it revived in July?
I have no idea.
And are you okay with it expiring?
I think that the communication has been that it'll come over here on some must-pass bill. And the only commitment I've made is that if it does, it would be considered under an open process.
The House Democratic leadership wrote you a letter yesterday calling on you to initiate bipartisan budget negotiations to end the sequester. Is that something that you're open-minded to, or do you think that you should be talking more in a grand bargain discussion with the President to settle something like that?
Well, I find it interesting that all of a sudden the Democrats don't like to sequester, including the President, when it was his idea to use the sequester to come up with the savings to increase the debt limit in 2011. And the fact is there was a budget that was passed by the House, a budget passed by the Senate, and a conference report between the two chambers. Now, the Democrats insist on denying our troops the tools they need to win. If the Democrats insist on denying our troops the pay raise that they've earned because they want more spending for the EPA and the IRS, let them take that discussion to the American people. Jake.
You just told your members that you supported Chaffetz's decision to strip Meadows of his
Absolutely.
subcommittee. Could you expand on that? I mean, what should members expect when it comes to voting against rules and with their ability to travel overseas or retain subcommittee chairmanships?
Listen, we have the majority. And when it comes to procedural votes in the House, the majority has to stick together and vote for or against, whatever the case may be, those procedural motions. And I think the chairman made the right decision. I made it clear to the members. I supported that decision. And I don't think I need to say a whole lot more, but I'm sure the family conversation will continue.
The White House is releasing today a review of its policies for families whose loved ones are held hostage overseas, and they're now no longer going to prosecute families who pay ransom. Just wondering what you think of that report?
Well, I've not seen the report, nor have I seen an analysis of it. But we have had a policy in the United States for over 200 years of not paying ransom and not negotiating with terrorists. And the concern that I have is that by lifting the principle, you could be endangering more Americans here and overseas. But I'll look more closely at what they're recommending and let you know later. Thanks, everybody.